the surface of the earth, buried under the earth. Or sometimes even underwater. Kurnool caves, traces of ash have been found here. This suggests people are familiar with their use of fire. A source of light to roast meat and scare away animals. Archaeologists give in this period, earliest period is called the Paleolithic. Okay, Paleo means old, lithos means stone. These are the two Greek words, and the name points to the importance of finds of stone tools. It extends from 2 million years ago to about 12,000 years ago. This long stretch of time is divided into lower, middle, and upper Paleolithic. This long span of time covers 99% of human history. The period when we find environmental changes, beginning about 12,000 years ago till about 10,000 years ago, is called Mesolithic or Middle Stone. Stone tools found middle. The nomadic hunter-gatherer era with large crude-chipped stone tools for the Mesolithic Middle Stone Age saw the development of tiny, sharp microliths, leading to more sophisticated tools, early animals, domestication, fishing, and settler life. Okay. Wood storage 2 million years ago. Around 10,000 to 6,000, but okay, so stones which found during this are generally tiny and are called microliths. Microliths are stuck in handles of bone. Excuse me. Microliths are very tiny stone tools. Okay. They were probably stuck on to handles of bone or wood to make tools such as saw, and sickles. At the same time, older varieties of tools continued to be in use, and from about 10,000 years ago is known as the Neolithic. Okay, this means new Medieval Stone Age. Around 12,000 years ago, there were major changes in the climate of the world, with a shift to relatively warm conditions in many areas. This led to the development of grasslands. This, in turn, led to an increase in the number of deer, antelope, goat, sheep, and cattle. That is, animals that survived on grass. Around 12,000 years ago, warm conditions, development of grasslands, increase in number of deer, antelope, sheep, goat, and cattle who survived from who survived on grass. And those who hunted these animals now followed them, learning about their food habits and their breeding seasons. It is likely that this helped the people to start thinking about herding and rearing these animals themselves. Fishing also became important. Mhm. From the monthly and the breeding seasons, it's likely that this thinking about herding and rearing. Managing the movement and grouping of people, sorry, animals. Sorting and sharing. Hoarding is how they managing the movement and grouping of people. Sorry, animals. I'm saying people, yeah. And rearing is about raising animals themselves, with herding being one activity within that larger practice. Okay. And fishing also become important at the beginning of farming and herding. This was also a time where several bearing grasses, including wheat, barley, and rice, grew naturally in different parts of the subcontinent. Men, women, and children probably collected these grains as food and learned where they grew and when they ripened. This may second wheat, barley, and rice grew naturally in different parts of the subcontinent. They collected grain and food and learned where they grew and when they ripened. This may have led them to think about growing plants on their own. In this way, people became farmers. People could also attract and then tame animals. Uh, then tame animals by leaving food for them near their shelters. By leaving food for them near their shelter. The first animal to be tamed was the wild ancestor of the dog. Later, people encouraged animals that were relatively gentle to come near the camps where they lived. These animals, such as sheep, goat, cattle, and other, also the pig, lived in herds. A herd of pigs, and most of them eat grass. Often, people protected these animals from attacks by other wild animals. This is how they became herders. By the dog was the first animal to be tamed. I really don't know. Domestication is the name given to the process in which people grow plants. In which people grow plants and look after animals. Very often, plants and animals that are tended by people became different from wild animals and plants also. This is because people select plants and animals for domestication process in which people grow plants and look after animals. Very often, plants and animals. Very often, plants and animals that are tended by people. from wild animals and plants because they select plants and animals for domestication. For example, they select those plants and animals that are not prone to disease. They also select plants that yield a large size grain and have strong stalks, capable of bearing the weight of the ripe grain. Seeds from selected plants are preserved and sown to ensure that new plants and seeds will have the same qualities. Amongst the animals, those that are relatively gentle are selected for breeding. As a result, gradually domesticated animals and plants become different from wild animals and plants. For example, the teeth and horns of wild animals are usually much larger than those of domesticated animals. Domestication was a gradual process that took place in many parts of the world. It began about 12,000 years ago. Okay, virtually all the plants and animals produced that we use as food is a result of domestication. Some of the earliest plants to be domesticated were wheat and barley, and the earliest domestic animals include sheep and goat. But the first one was the dog to be tamed. Okay. If you plant a seedling, then it takes some time to grow. This may be for several days, weeks, months, and in some cases years. When people begin growing plants, it means that they had to stay in the same place for a long time, looking after the plants, watering, weeding, driving away animals. फसल को पर्याप्त धूप, पानी और पोषण तत्व मिल सके और इसमें छटाई करना है. ओके. वांछित driving away animals and birds till the grain ripened, and then the grain had to be used carefully as grain had to be stored for both food and seed. People had to think of ways of storing it. In many areas, they began making large clay pots or wove baskets or dug pits into the ground. Okay, to store food and seed. Rearing animals. Animals multiply naturally. Besides, if they are looked after carefully, they provide milk, which is an important source of food and meat whenever required. In other words, animals that are reared can be used as a store of food. Hmm. Apart from food, what are the animals? What are animals used for today? Telemetry, you'll notice a number of blue squares each month sign from where archaeologists have found evidence of early farmers and herders. Neolithic sites, Payanpalli, Allur, Chirand, Mahagra, Kolsara, Gursama, Mergad, Daujali heading, Luna, blue squares, yes. Gursama, Mergad, Koldeva, Chirand, Daujali, Mahagra, Payampalli, Allur. These are the places. Found evidence of early farmers and herders. They are found all over the subcontinent. Some of the most important ones are in the northwest and present-day Kashmir and in east and south India. In east means Tajri and Chiran, and south India like Halur and Payampalli. And this one is near the Burzam and also the Merkar. Right, northwest. Okay. To find out whether these sites were set up for farmers and or scientists study evidence of plants and animal bones. Uh, One of the most exciting finds includes remains of burned grain. This may be burned accidentally or on purpose. Can identify these grains, and so we know that a number of crops were grown in different parts of the subcontinent. They can also identify the bones of these grains, so we know that a number of crops were grown in different parts of the subcontinent. Bones of different animals. Okay. Towards a settled life, archaeologists have found traces of huts or houses at some site. For instance, in Burzahom in present okay, people put pit houses which were dug into the ground with steps leading into them. These may have provided shelter in cold weather. These may have provided shelter in cold weather. Archaeologists have also found cooking huts both inside and outside the huts. Facilities that depending on the weather, people could cook for either indoors or outdoors. In Bursaun, pit houses which dug into the ground with steps leading into them. Okay, and they provided shelter in cold weather. They also found the cooking huts inside and outside the huts, which suggests that depending on the weather, people could cook for either indoors or outdoors. Stone tools have been found from many sites as well. Many of these are different from the earlier Paleolithic tools, and that is why they are called Neolithic. Stone tools have been found from many sites as well. Okay, many of them earlier Paleolithic, and that is why they are called Neolithic. These include tools that were polished to give a fine cutting edge, and mortars and pestles. Clears. Okay, fine. Mortars These include tools that were polished to give a fine cutting edge, and mortars and pestles used for grinding grains and other plant produce. Mortars and pestles are used for grinding grain even today, several thousand years later. At the same time, tools of the Paleolithic types continued to be made and used. Remember, some tools were also made of bone. Many kinds of earthen pots have also been found. Earthen pots. मिट्टी का घड़ा. These were sometimes decorated and were used for storing things. People began using pots. People began people began using people began using pots for cooking food, especially grains like rice, wheat, and lentils that are becoming an important part of the diet. Besides, they began weaving cloth using Besides, they began weaving cloth using different kinds of material, for example, cotton. It could not be grown. They exchange everywhere. Not quite. In many areas, men and women still continue to hunt and gather food, and where people started farming and herding. Slowly, over several thousand years. Besides, in some cases, people tried to combine these activities, trying different things during different seasons. Okay, living in Rhine This site is located in fertile plain near the Bolan Pass. This site is located in a fertile plain near the Bolan Pass, and which is one of the most important routes into Iran. Most important routes into Iran. Probably one of the places where people learn to grow barley and wheat and rear sheep and goats for the first time in this area. Sheep and goat. It is one of the earliest villages that we know about, and earliest cities is Indus Valley, Indus Valley, Harappan. Are they different or what? Okay, but in earliest villages, Margar is the one of the first. Okay. At this site, many animal bones were found. Bones of wild animals such as the deer and pig, and also bones of sheep and goat were found. Bones of wild animals such as deer and pig also found. And this animal was found also found. And also bones of sheep and goat were found. Sheep and goat and deer and pig. Okay. Other fancy metal include remains of square and rectangular houses. Square and rectangular houses यहाँ पे मेरे घर. And the pit houses are in the Burzahum in Kashmir. Okay. Hmm. And cooking huts also. And at Mehrgarh, rectangular or square houses. Each house has four or more compartments, some of which may have been used for storage. This is what a Mehrgarh look like, and what may seem similar to the one in which you live. The beautiful Mehrgarh. Skeletons of goats. When people die, their relatives and friends generally pay respect to them. People look after them, perhaps, and they believe that there is some form of life after that. There is one such arrangement. Buren is one such arrangement. Several burial sites have been found at Margaret. Margaret, okay. In one instance, the dead person was buried with goats. Goats which were probably meant to serve as food in the next world. The dead person was buried with goats which were probably meant to serve as food. So buried with goats which were probably meant to serve as food in the next world. Okay. But the people who grow crops and to stay the same person. Okay. I think that many people who lived in herding systems to start with, and that herding became more important because we found so much different kinds of animal bones. That's why they think that at Maribor, people were hunters because in the burial sites, the dead person was buried with goats. ओके मेसोलिथिक पीरियड जो है Mesolithic period from 12,000 to 10,000. Beginning of domestication around 12,000 years ago, and beginning of settlement at Mehrgarh about 8,000 years ago. Beginning of Neolithic is 10,000 years ago, from 2 million years ago to 12,000. Paleolithic from 12 to 10,000. Mesolithic and from 10,000, beginning of Neolithic. Okay, and beginning of settlement at Malgar is about 8,000 years ago. In the earliest cities, mm, always in India, 100 and stumbled. See, oxide hookah, like these kind of okay. Is in the early cities. This is the Indus River, Indus River, Harappa, and Mohenjo-daro, Janodaro, Dholavira. Dholavira is the it is in Gujarat, right? Mm. Okay, so 150 years ago, railway lines were first time in Punjab. Engineers such stumbled upon the site of Harappa in present Pakistan. To them, it seemed like a mound, like dheer. Okay, that was a rich source of ready-made, high-quality bricks. So they carried off thousands of bricks from the walls of the old buildings of the city to build railway lines. Many buildings were completely destroyed. Then, about 80 years ago, archaeologists found the site and realized that this was one of the oldest cities in the subcontinent, as this was the first city to be discovered. All other sites from where similar buildings and other things were found were described as Harappan. Sorry, as this was the first city to all other sites from where similar buildings and other things were found were described as Harappan, and these cities developed about 4,700 years ago. Okay, 150 years ago, they were completely destroyed, and about 80 years ago, archaeologists found this site and found out that this is the oldest cities in the subcontinent, and these cities are called Harappan. What was special about these cities? Many of these cities were divided into two or more parts. Usually, the part of the west was smaller but higher. East, west, north, south. Right? So, the part of the west was smaller but higher. Hmm. And archaeologists describe this as a citadel. A fortress is command a city that is used for the control of inhabitants, and or castle or high ground in a near city where people could go when the city was being attacked. A castle on high ground. A castle on high ground in or near. The part of the west was smaller but higher. Was smaller but higher. Okay, and here a castle on high ground or in or near a city where people couldn't go when the city was being attacked. Many of the cities were divided into two or more parts. Usually, the part of the west was smaller but bigger, and archaeologists describe this as the citadel. Citadel is a castle on high ground in or near a city where people can go when city was being attacked. Okay. Generally, the part of the east was larger but lower. This is called the lower town. Very often, walls of baked bricks were built around each part. Very often, walls of baked brick were built around each part. The bricks were so well baked that they have lasted for thousands of years. Bricks were laid in an open, interlocking pattern that made the walls strong. Bricks were like that they have lasted for thousands of years. Very often, walls of baked bricks, baked brick, walls of baked around each part was so big that they have lasted for thousands of years. The bricks were laid in an interlocking pattern and that made the walls strong. In some cities, special buildings were constructed. The citadel, for example, in Mohenjo-daro, a very special tank, which archaeologists call the Great Bath, was built in this area. This was lined with bricks. This was lined with bricks coated with plaster and made watertight with a layer of natural tar. There were steps leading down to it from two sides. Another very special tank, which is called the Great Bath. A special tank, archaeologists called it Great Bath. The Great Bath. Okay, this was built in this area. There were steps leading down to it from two sides, while there were rooms on all sides. There were rooms on all sides. This was lined with bricks, coated with plaster, and made watertight with a layer of natural tar. Lined bricks, coated with plaster, watertight with a layer of natural tar. The first attacks take a substantial ammonia gas, often a form of bituminous semi-solid petroleum product like in tablets and irritants refers. Organic materials. Organic materials like wood, coal, or petroleum found naturally. Dark or sticky substance from aromatic materials like wood, coal, or petroleum found naturally or made by heating. जिसको कहते हैं waterproofing boards, building, sealing, adhesive, and historically wood binder. Okay, from wood and coal produced by heating wood or coal without air. Made. So, there were steps leading down right from two sides while there were rooms on all sides. Water was probably brought in from a well and drained out after use. Perhaps important people took a dip in this tank on special occasions. Other cities such as Kalibangan and Lothal had fire others. Others. um, okay, I mean like Kalibangan and Lothal had fire altars and where sacrifices may have been performed. Sacrifices. And some cities like Mohenjo-daro, Harappa, and Lothal had elaborate storehouses. Harappa, Punjab, Mohenjo-daro, Dholavira, Rakhigarhi. Harappan sites are accurate location of the ancient area. Indus Valley civilization noted in Pakistan and India, known for their planned cities, sophisticated drainage seas, and trained with major sites including Harappa, Mohenjo-daro, Dholavira, and Rakhigarhi. Okay, these are all the Harappan sites. Just raise the pressure. Okay. One of the first excavated sites giving its name to the civilization of granaries and brick structures, famous for the great path, advanced drainage, and red land streets. Dholavira noted for its unique three-part city layout, sophisticated water reservoirs, and a large signboard with Indus script. Rakhigarhi, a very large site in Haryana, providing significant geological insights. Lothal, and a major port town with a dockyard, indicating extensive maritime trade. A major port town with a dockyard, indicating a maritime trade. Sahel providing significant genetic insights. Kalibangan featured plot, fair, and fantasy ritual practices. Janhu specialized manufacturing center for beads and seals, lacking a citadel. Banwal. There is no Banwali. Maypur is unique pottery and town planning with both grid and radial patterns. The Banwali. गनवीरी वाली राखी गढ़ी कलीबंग नदरड़ा तगड़ा सब सुरको तड़ा लोथन ताको okay no worries. Well, sequence may have been performed. Some sites like Mohenjo-daro, Harappa, and Lothal had elaborate storehouses. Great Grande were large structures built on raised platforms. Okay. Elaborate storehouses and like large granaries with supreme ventilation were the key feature of ancient Indus Valley civilization. Indus Valley cities like Harappa and Mohenjo-daro used for central. Okay, Harappa, Mohenjo-daro, and Lothal. And these are the three cities. Okay, and generally, houses were either one or two stories high. With rooms built around a courtyard. Okay, with rooms built around a courtyard, and most houses had a separate bathing area, and some had wells to supply water. And many of the cities had covered drains. Many of the cities had covered drains. Notice how carefully it is in straight lines. Each drain had a gentle slope so that the water could flow through it. And very often, drains in houses were connected to those on the streets, and smaller drains led into bigger ones. As the drains were covered, inspection hoses were provided at intervals to clean them. A small access point and was across undergrounds, designed for visual checks, maintenance, and clearing blockage using tools like cameras or rods without allowing human entry like large manholes. Okay, these are the small hole. Okay, small inspection. Oh, sorry, hole. Many intervals clean them. All three houses, drains, and streets were probably planned and built at the same time. Yeah, due to its structure and the Harappan city was a very busy place. There were people who planned the construction of special buildings in the city. These were provided by the rulers. It is likely that the rulers sent people to distant lands to get metal, precious stones, and other things that they wanted. They may have kept the most valuable objects, such as ornaments of gold and silver or beautiful beads. Beautiful beads for themselves, and there were scribes, means author, okay, people who knew how to write, okay, who helped prepare the seals and perhaps wrought on other materials that have not survived, and perhaps wrought on other materials that have. Okay. Besides, there were men and women craftspersons making all kinds of things, either in their own homes or in special workshops. There were people also making all kinds of things, either in their own homes or in special workshops. People are traveling to distant lands and returning with their raw materials and perhaps stories. And terracotta temples have been found, and children must have played with this. The signs on the top of the seal are part of a script. The really form of writing knowing this subcontinent scholars have tried to read these signs, but they still do not know exactly what they mean. Okay. New crafts in the city. Are made in cities. Okay. Most of the things that in farming countries are made of stone, shell, and metal. Most of the things are made of stone, shell, and metal, including copper, bronze, gold, and silver. Copper and bronze were used to make tools, weapons, ornaments, vessels, and worship management. Okay. Ornament, ornaments and vessels. Gold and silver were ancient Egypt, mentioned in the Bible and Islamic tradition in ancient civilizations in Peru. Sorry, in US vessel carrying terracotta pot. In vessels on family terracotta pots often wheel made and painted with intricate geometric animal and floral designs in black, red, and green used for storage grains and burials, alongside finely crafted copper bronze vessels like lotas and carinated pots, showing advanced ceramic and metalworking skills for daily use and ritual. Perhaps the most striking finds are sorry, stone, shell, and metal, including copper, bronze, gold, and silver. Copper and bronze were used to make tools, weapons, ornaments, and vessels. hmm Tools, weapons, ornaments, vessels. Gold and silver was used to make ornaments and vessels. The most striking finds of the beads, weights, and blades. Beads. Beads are the necklaces, something like this. Sorry. Beads, weights. Okay. Develop chemical upper beads were highly standardized for design. This is a precise binary system. 1 to 4, 8, 16 for small units and large ones. The common unit around 13.7 grams is usually for trade, taxation, and administration. The most striking, okay. Beads, weights, and blades. They use long, thin blades, primarily made for type of flint, sourced for the body hairs. What else place used? Which is not primarily shared. Used in agriculture, harvesting, crafting, and daily life, serving as the primary cutting tools before widespread metal use. Used in agriculture, crafting, and daily life. It's a primary cutting tools. So widespread metal use. Okay, it is made up of stone, I think. No copper phones are the most famous. Beads, weights, and blades. Okay, these are the weights. Mhm. So they're made of shirt, a kind of stone. Shirt. Used in agriculture, harvesting, crafting, and daily life, serving as the primary cutting tools before widespread metal use. The weapons also made seals out of stone. Shirt, a kind of stone. These were probably used to weigh precious stones. Probably used to weigh precious stones or metals. Many of the things were made out of carnelian or purple stone. The stone was cut, shaped, polished. Mm, Finally, a hole was bored through the center so that the string could be passed through it. Stone blades. These are stone. Okay. Embroidered cloth of stone of statue. Stone statue of an important man found from Mohenjo-daro shows him wearing an embroidered garment. This is how well the beards are shaped. They made Then made stone shell with stone shell and metal, including copper, bronze, gold, and silver, like ornaments, vessels, these kind of things. Okay, but beads, weights, stone blades, weights are made of made of a short kind of stone. Okay, probably used to weigh precious stone or metals. Beads. It is minimalism made of carnelian, a beautiful red stone. Carnelian. The stone was cut, shaped, polished, and finally a hole was bored through the center so that a string could be passed through it. So Harappans made seals out of stone. They're generally rectangular and have a animal carved in them. The Harappans also made pots with beautiful black designs. The Harappans also made pots with beautiful black designs such as the one shown on page 6. It's important. Was introduced in the village gardens. So it's made with a black design. Cotton was probably grown at Meerut about 7,000 years ago. Actual pieces of cloth were found attached to the lid of a silver vase and some copper objects at Manchtal. Yes, at Mehergarh. Was got from Mehergarh. Cotton can be- Okay, fine. I got 7,000 years ago. Cotton. Okay. Actual pieces of cloth were found attached to the Professor was and some copper objects at Mount Qatar. Yeah. Spindle holes. Spindle holes. Okay, okay. Spindle holes. Next week. Made of terracotta and bronze. These were used to spin thread. Okay. So what is like stone or shell that are found naturally? This is a material that is artificially produced. A gum was used to shape sand or power cords into an object. The object were then glazed. Okay, then glazed, resulting in a shiny, glassy surface. The colors of the glaze were usually blue or sea green. Okay, bronze was used to make beads. then glaze returning in a shiny glassy surface. Like unlike stones and found naturally translucent material that gum was used to shape sand or to understand that experience. Well, like they're like the terracotta toys, maybe. Yes. Okay. Used to make beads, bangles, earrings, and tiny vessels. These are many of the things that were produced were probably the work of specialists, or probably a person who was trained to do only one kind of work. For example, cutting stones or polishing beads or carving seals. See how this is carved and how carefully the beard is shown. This must have been the work of an expert person. Not everybody could have been a specialist. We don't know whether only men were specialists or only women. Perhaps some women and men may have been specialists. Raw materials. Raw materials are the substances that are either found naturally or produced by farmers or herders, such as wood or ores of metal and these kind of things. मुझे मेरे को बता ये एक चट्टान में खनिज होते हैं इसमें पर्याप्त मात्रा में तांबा होती है कि नहीं खनिज करना की तरीकों से किया जा सकता है ओके वह चट्टानें खनिज जैसे Robert Art which method have you taken for example cotton produced by farm produce farmers okay these are then processed to produce finished goods for example cotton produced by farmers is raw material that were produced to make processed to make cloth while some of their raw materials that have been used were available locally. Many items such as copper, tin, gold, silver, and precious metals had to brought from distant places. The Harappans probably got copper. The Harappans probably got copper from present-day Rajasthan. Happens probably from present-day Rajasthan. From Rajasthan, and even from Oman in West Asia. Copper reference लेंगे copper ईरान या फिर ओमान से ईरान ओमान is from the West Asia. Okay, and the Rajasthan. Okay, and tin which was mixed with copper to produce bronze may have been brought from present may have been brought from present-day Afghanistan and Iran. Tin which is mixed with copper. Tin plus copper equals to bronze. Have been brought from the present-day Afghanistan and Iran. Gold would have come the way from the present-day Karnataka. The precious stones from the present-day Gujarat, Iran, and Afghanistan. Copper from Rajasthan and Oman in West Asia. Tin which was mixed with copper to make up bronze, which have been brought from Afghanistan, and gold from the Karnataka, and one more thing, precious stones from Gujarat, Iran, and Afghanistan. One more time, copper from Rajasthan and Oman in West Asia. Tin mixed with copper with bronze from Afghanistan. From Afghanistan. From Afghanistan and gold from Karnataka, and the precious stones from Gujarat, Iran, and Afghanistan. Afghanistan से दो चीजें आती थी, the bronze and precious stones. ये राजस्थान से copper and Oman and West Asia से copper and Karnataka से gold. Yeah, गुजरात और ईरान से और अफगानिस्तान से precious stones. Food for people in the cities. While many people live in the cities, others living in the countryside grave crops and reared animals. These farmers and hunters supply food to craftspersons, scribes, and rulers in the cities. We know from remains of plants that the Harappas grave wheat, barley, pulses, peas, rice, sesame, linseed, and mustard. The new tool, the plow, was used to dig the earth for turning the soil and planting seeds. Harappas grew wheat, barley, pulses, linseed, rice, sesame, and mustard, and also peas, barley. Okay. The new tool plow was used to dig the earth for turning the soil and planting seeds, while the real plows, which are probably made of wood, have not survived. Tomatoes have been found soon. As this region does not receive heavy rainfall, some form of irrigation may have been used. This means that water was stored and multiplied. Okay, wheat, barley, pulses, peas, rice, sesame, linseed, and mustard. These are the examples. And when you try new tool, the plow was used to dig the earth, returning the soil and planting seeds. The real was not a border which has not survived. So, this some form of irrigation has been used. This means that water was stored and supplied to the place where the plants were growing. Ribbons, reared cattle. There reared cattle, sheep, goat, and buffalo, modern pastures were settlements. There reared cattle, sheep, goat, and buffalo. Cattle, sheep, goat, and buffalo. Um, Modern pastures were available on settlements. And however, in the dry summer months, large herd of animals were provided taken to create resistance such as grass and water. Those of like the fruits like bear, cod fish, and other items like the antelope. Okay, fine. The city of Dholavira was located on Khadir Peak, also said as Peak, in the run of Kutch. This fresh water and fertile soil. City of Dholavira. Dholavira located in Khadir Peak in the run of Kutch, where fresh water was there and fertile soil. Unlike some of the other Harappan sites, which were divided into two parts, were divided into three parts, and each part was surrounded by massive stone walls with entrances through gateways. There was also a large open area in the settlement. Open area in the settlement where public ceremonies will be held. Other are secured large letters of the Harappan script that were carved out of white stone and perhaps inlaid in wood. This is a unique find, as every Harappan writing has been found on small objects. This is the unique find as generated from the writing. Small objects such as seals. This is a unique find as several Harappan writing has been found on small objects. Other finds include large letters of the Harappan script that were carved out of white stone and perhaps inlaid in wood. found in University. Khadir Beth in the run of Koch, where there was fresh water and fertile soil. Dolaware was divided into three parts. Each part was surrounded with massive stone walls with entrance through gateways. There was also a large open area in the settlement for the public ceremonies, and there is fine nature. They were covered in white stone and perhaps in laid in words. This is a unique find that generally happen in writing has been found on small objects such as seals. The city of Lothal stood beside a tributary of Sabarmati in Gujarat. Stood beside Gujarat close to the Gulf of Khambat. It was situated near areas where raw materials such as semi-precious stones were easily available. It was situated near areas important center for making objects out of stone shells. This was also a storage in the city. Many things are ceilings. The impression of seasonal clay were found in this storehouse. This dockyard at Lothal, beside a tributary of Sabarmati, Gujarat goes to the Gulf of city of Lothal is beside a tributary of Sabarmati in Gujarat, close to the Gulf of Khambat. Beside a tributary of Sabarmati in Gujarat. Sabarmati in Gujarat, which is in the Gulf of Khambat, close to the Gulf of Khambat. The Sears tank may have been a dockyard where boats and ships came in from the sea and through the river channel. Goods were probably loaded and unloaded here. The borders are near areas where raw materials such as nutrition. The building that was found here was probably a workshop for making beads made of stone, half-made beads. Tools for bead making and finished beads must have all been found here. Seasons may have been used to stamp bags or packets containing goods that were sent from one place to another. After a bag was closed or tied, a layer of wet clay was applied to the knot and the seal was pressed on. The impression of feeling is known as the sealing. If the sealing was intact, one could be sure that the goods had arrived safely. Seals may have been used as a stamp. Seals are used as a stamp bag or packets containing goods that were sent from one place to another. The bag was closed with a layer of wet clay was applied to the knot and the seal was pressed on it. The mystery of the end. The building that was found here was probably a workshop for making beads. The building that was found here was probably a workshop for making beads, pieces of stone, like pieces of stone, half-made beads. Those were made making unfinished beads that have all been found here. Okay, the mystery. Uh, Around 3,900 years ago, we find many of the major trade people stopped living in many of the cities. Writing and sealing rays were no longer used. Raw materials brought from long distance became rare. In much of them, we could find that garbage piled up on the streets. Drain system broke down, and new, less impressive houses were built, even over the streets. But it's all we are not sure. Some scholars suggest that the river dried up They was dried up. Others suggest that there was deforestation. This could have happened because fuel was required for making bricks and for smelting copper ores. Besides, grazing by large herds of cattle, sheep, and goats may have been destroyed the green cover. In some areas, there were floods, but none of these can explain the end of all the cities. Flooding or a river drying up would have had an effect in only some areas. It appears as if the rulers lost control. If in case the aspect of the change are quite clear. Sight and Sindh investment chapter in Pakistan were abandoned. Abandoned. छोड़ दिया गया. ठीक है. While many people moved into newer, some smaller cities to the east and the south. Okay. These cities emerged about 1400 years later. New cities emerged about 25 years. Cotton cultivation in Malabar is about 7,000 years ago. Beginning of cities about 4,700. Beginning of new cities emerged in 2,500 years ago. And beginning of end of the all of the cities is around 3,900 years ago. Okay, so the copper is from the Rajasthan, gold is from Afghanistan, sorry. Gold is from Karnataka, tin is from Afghanistan, precious stones is from Gujarat. Okay, know that the clothes we used to have they have found the in Mohenjo-daro found a lead cotton lead with silver base. What is it? Yeah, cotton probably one minor. Actual pieces of cloth were found attached to it to the lid of the silver was an object and some copper objects in Mohenjo-daro. Why were metals writings important for the Harappans? What books and bureaus tell us? Mary in the library. As the bell rang, the asked the students to follow him because they were going to the library for the first time. When Mary stepped inside, the found that he was much larger than the classroom, and there were so many shelves, all full of books. In one corner was a cupboard filled with large old volumes. Seeing her trying to open the cupboard, that cupboard has very special books and different religions. Did you know that we have a set of the Vedas? What are the Vedas? Many wondered. Let us find out. One of the oldest literary sources in the world. You may have read about the Vedas. There are four of them: Rigveda, Samveda, Yajurveda, and Atharvaveda. The oldest Veda is the Rigveda, composed about 3,500 years ago. The Rigveda includes more than 1,000 of hymns. called Sukta. Sukta well said. These hymns are in praise of various gods and goddesses. The three gods are especially important. Agni, the god of fire, Indra, a warrior god, and Soma, a plant from which a special drink was Soma plant from which special drink was prepared. Agni Dev, Indra Dev, and Soma. These hymns were composed by the sages. Sages means rishis. Priests to recite and these memorize each syllable, word, and sentence. Memorize each syllable, word. Word a part of a word which contains one sound. Each syllable, word, and sentence. One sentence, bit by bit, with great care. Most of the hymns were composed, taught, and learned by men. A few was composed by women. Maybe composed by okay. Rigveda is an old or Vedic Sanskrit, which is different from the Sanskrit you learn in school these days. Okay. I love this chapter. 3,500 years. Rigved, Samved, Yajurved, and Atharvaved. The oldest Ved is Rigved. It is about 3,400 years ago. More than 1,000 hymns called Vasid or Sukta. This in praise of various gods and goddesses, and she was especially important. Agni Dev, the god of fire, Indradeva, warrior god, and Soma plant from which a special drink was prepared. These hymns are given by sages and priesthood students recite and memorize each syllable, word, and sentence but it with great care. Most of the hymns were composed, taught, and learned by men. A few were composed by men. And Rigveda is an old or Vedic Sanskrit. Sanskrit is a very part of family language. We in some Indian languages such as Assamese, Guru, Gujarati, Hindi, Kashmiri, and Sindhi. Asian languages such as Persian and many European languages such as English, French, German, Greek, Italian, Spanish, This family, they are called a family because they generally had words in common. Take the word matra, ma, Hindi, and mother, English. Did you notice any similarities? Ma, mother, ma, mother, ma, mother. Other languages used in the continent belong to different families. For instance, those who used in the northeast belong to the Tibeto-Burman family. Tamil, Telugu, Kannada, and Malayalam belong to the Dravidian family, and the languages spoken in Jharkhand and parts of central India belong to the Austroasiatic family. List the languages you have heard about and try and identify the families to which they belong. The books we use are written and printed. Languages were recited and heard rather than we read. Okay, read it. Let's give you the part of family. A part of family of languages known as Indo-European. Some Indian languages such as Assamese, Gujarati, Hindi, and Kashmiri and Sindhi. Asian languages such as Persian and Midi European languages such as English, French, German, Greek, Italian, and Spanish belong to this family. They're called a family because they originally had words in common, like Matra in Sanskrit, Ma in Hindi, and Mother in English. And other languages used in the subcontinent belong to different families. For instance, those used in the northeast belong to Tibeto. Those used in the northeast belong to the Tibeto-Burman family, and Tamil, Telugu, Kannada, and Malayalam belong to the Dravidian family. And the languages spoken in Jharkhand and parts of central India belong to the Austro-Asiatic family. Especially in the Manda branches present in Bihar, very true, like Santali, Mundri, and Ho, spoken by travelers in Santa Kamis. And Bhojpuri language belongs to the Eastern Indo-Aryan branch of the Indo-European language. Excuse me, Indo-European. Austro-Asiatic family in Central. Known as Okay, in the Aryan branch of the Indian family, every mother after the Mathaki and known as Pari languages spoken by parts of Java in the Aryan also. This organization, Egypt, Mauritius, and the Caribbean. The books we use are written and printed. The Rigveda was recited and heard rather than read. It was written down. Rigveda was recited and heard rather than read. It was written down several centuries after it was first composed and printed less than 200 years ago. How students study Rigveda? Historians like archaeologists find out about the past, but in addition to material remains, they examine written sources as well. Let's see uh, how they study Rigveda. Some of the hymns in the they find out about the past, but in addition to material remains, they find written sources as well. Some of the hymns in the Rigveda are in the form of dialogues. In the form of dialogues. This is a part of one such hymn. A dialogue between a sage named Vishwamitra and two rivers, Beas and Sutlej, that were worshipped as goddess. Are in the form of some of the कुछ ऐसे भजन है भजन right स्तोत्र which are in the form of dialogues. This is part of one such hymn. A dialogue between a sage named Idna and Idna that were worshipped as goddess. And this is a form of dialogues. This is part of one such hymn. A dialogue between a sage named Vishwamitra and two rivers, Beas and Sutlej that were worshipped as goddesses. Achha, this one. Okay. Suspended. Found in Kashmir. About 150 years ago, it was used to prepare one of the earliest printed texts of the Rig Veda, as well as an English translation, now preserved in the library in Pune, Maharashtra. Vishwamitra, O rivers, come down from the mountains like two-stepped horses. Like two shining cows that lick their calves. O rivers, Vishwamitra is a sage who says to the rivers, Beas and Sutlej, O rivers, come down from the mountains like two swift horses, like two shiny cows that lick their calves. You move like chariots to the sea. Through the power of Indra, you are full of water and wish to unite with one another. You are full of water and wish to unite with one another, the rivers. We, who are full of water, move along the path the gods have made for us. Once we start flowing, we cannot be stopped. Why do you pray to us, O sage, Vishwamitra, O sisters? Please listen to me. The singer who has come from a distance with his chariots and carts. Let your waters not rise above our axles. A bar that connects a pair of wheels or vehicle. So that we can cross safely. So that we can cross in the rivers. We will listen to your prayers so that you can cross safely. Historians point out that this hymn was composed in the area where these rivers flow. This suggests that Sam lived in a society where horses and cows were valued animals. This is why the rivers are compared to horses and cows. Do you think that is so important? Give us a answer. Read the verses and find out what are the modes of transport that are mentioned. chariots, and carts. These are the two mode of transport that mentioned. Other rivers, especially the Indus and its other tributaries, and the Saraswati, are also named in the hymns. The Ganga and Yamuna are the named only ones. The sage lived in a society where horses and cows were valued. This is why the rivers are compared to horses and cows. In the area where these rivers flow, especially the Indus and the Saraswati are also named in the hymn. The Ganga and Yamuna are named only once. And let's find it. Ganga, Yamuna, Indus, Beas and Sutlej. These are the five five rivers that are not sorry. List 5 rivers that are not mentioned in the Rig Veda. Wait. Jhelum, Chenab, Ravi, and Narmada is here. No, Narmada is not here. So three, sorry, four. Four rivers and one more. Sun. And also the Mahanadi, Godavari. There are many here. Kaveri River. Okay. Cattle, horses, and chariots. There's a lot more. Sukta. Sukta means well said. Chariots. Boldo means Yashnadas Meghalith. There are many players in the Lyrical for cattle, children, especially sons, and horses. Horses were yoked to chariots that were used in battles, which were fought to capture cattle. Horses were yoked to chariots. Equally vote like जुए में डाल दिया means जुते हुए अभी जुते हुए बंधन में बंधे हुए. Horses were yoked to chariots that were used in battles which were fought to capture cattle. Okay. Battles were also fought for land. Battles were also fought for land, which was important for pasture. Which was important for pasture and for growing hardy crops. Battles are used for land and which is important for pasture and for growing hardy crops. Hardy crops means growing hardy crops that ripen quickly, such as barley. Some battles were ripen quickly, as barley. Some battles were fought for water and to capture people. Some of the wealth was that was obtained was kept by the leaders. Some of was given to the press. Wealth was obtained was that was obtained was kept by the leaders. Some given to the priests, and the rest was distributed among the people. Some wealth was used for the performance of yajnas. used for the performance of yajnas or sacrifices, in which offerings were made into the fire. For the performance of yajnas or sacrifices, in which offerings were made into the fire, these were meant for gods and goddesses. Offerings could include ghee, grain, and in some cases, okay, animals. Ghee, grain, and in some cases, animals. Most men took part in these wars, and there was no regular army, but there were assemblies where people met and discussed matter of. But there were assemblies where people met and discussed matters of war and peace. They also chose leaders who were often brave and skillful, warriors. Words to describe people. I'll read it later.